Okay, let's take what we did in our last lesson and kind of do that again and go a little quicker and change it a little bit. Okay, so now we've decided with our electrical family here, and I'm in a project that we want to maybe have the option. You see, right now, if you pick on here and you go edit type, you'll see that you've got your 220, your 220 volt option down inside of here, and it's kind of deep preset by your type inside of here. But let's just say for whatever reason, and I'm by no means an electrical engineer or even designer or draftsman, is that you wanted to have an instance parameter. Okay, so this time what we want is we want to be able to have it so that these two little half moons on each side are filled in like solid black. And we want that option on all of the symbols. We want to be able to make that change to any one of them individually. You see, the thing is right now, if I take this guy and I control and I drag this guy over here, okay, and if I pick on this guy and I go into edit type and I decide to whatever turn this on as an option, it's going to change all the types, all the standards, because it's been set as a type parameter. I want to be able to pick one object and just have that one object get these little side parts filled in. I don't want it to change the other standard one or any other one. I want it to be an instance available parameter. Okay, so watch how we do this. I'm just going to undo that once. Okay, undo again. Okay, so, and again, this is all in the same one family. So I'm going to pick on here, and I'm going to say, edit the family. That's part of this annotation object, which is really the focus of what we're working with here, more so than the 3D aspect of this outlet. Okay, so now I'm going to pick on this annotation family and I'm going to say edit family. Now inside of here, I'm going to say this is a bit ridiculous. I am going to pull this guy down and pull it over to here. So that's just a kind of a sideline change that I'm going to make that look a little nicer. So now in this annotation family, what I'm going to do is I can do this in any order, but I'm going to start by making a new parameter. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to make a new parameter, and it's going to be very similar to this one. It's going to be a yes, no. I'm going to say add, and it's going to be called, WP for waterproofing, and it is going to be an instance specific parameter. And it's going to be a yes, no, and it's going to be grouped under, general again, just to keep it with the other one, as far as sorting it in this palette over here. So WP instance, yes, no, general, hit OK, and hit OK. That's it. I've made a new parameter. Now I'm going to draw the actual geometry. So inside of here, I'm going to go to create, and I'm going to create a filled region. So filled region. I'm going to look at the filled region type 1. I'm going to change it to say, okay, I want it to be solid black, and I'm going to pick my geometry. Watch, I'm going to go pick, and I'm going to pick the circle. Okay, now what I'm going to do next is I'm just drafting now. I'm going to click out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my split tool. I'm going to say split element, and I'm going to delete inner segment. So I'm going to pick over here and pick over there. It's kind of funny how you have to break up circles. I could have did this in an by drawing an arc instead of picking the circle. Escape. Now I'm going to take my line that I drew. I'm basically forming a closed polygon. Okay, and I could fillet these as well. And I'm going to now use my trim or my fillet and say fillet here and here. So really I've got an arc and a line, defining the outline of my filled region, which is going to be solid black. Hit OK, click out, there it is. Okay, I'm going to take this guy now, hover or tab to get it. Filled region, I can see down here on my status bar, pick, and I'm just going to use my mirror because I have a nice axis in the middle, pick, mirror that over. Okay, now I need to take the visibility of these objects and assign them to the parameter WP. So watch, if I pick on this solid geometry. It says, yes, it's visible in the family. I don't want it to be that easy. I want it to be controlled by the parameter WP. Hit OK, click out. Do the same with this guy. So I don't think you can do two at once. Visibility, sneaky little Mario Brothers button there. WP, hit OK, click out. Okay, this is the same annotation family. Two new solid objects tied to that parameter. I'm going to say save. Load to project. Load it to my family, not my project. Hit OK. Overwrite existing version. Now, overwrite existing version and its parameter values. Again, we don't do this one as much because it's going to overwrite the actual values. I just want to overwrite the version itself. Okay, and then so hit OK on that, and there it is. Okay, but because this is nested and I need to push this into the family, I have to do that same process again. This is welcome to the programming part of Revit. So now I can go in the family file, I can pick on here, and I have to do the same thing again. Add a parameter, it's going to be called WP. Okay. And it's going to be instance, meaning I can do it to any individual object rather than the type. It is going to be a yes, no, and it's going to be grouped under general. Okay, the only difference is this one is an instance, and the name, of course. Hit OK. I can hit apply, but all I have to do is hit OK. See, there's my two parameters I made grouped under general. Click out. Now I do a save. And now I say OK. Load that into my project. Load it up into project 3, hit OK, overwrite, just regular overwrite, click out. Now, all of a sudden they're all turned on, and that's because by default, back in the family, I left the default to be on. So the key is now I can pick on any one of these. I don't have to say edit type. All I have to do is go to general here and turn off the WP, and that individual will get turned off. Oh, you know what? I went a little bit quick there. I missed a step. Click out. Let's go back, edit family. Okay. I missed a couple of things. So what I've loaded it in here. Okay. I made my new parameters in here, or my new parameter called WP. But now what I have to do is pick on here. I always forget this step. Pick on the object itself. Then go to its WP and assign it to the WP from this file. Gets me every time. Hit OK. Click out. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is, by default, I want it off. So I'm going to go back into here and say, OK, the default is off. Hit OK. And it disappears. The last, again, I forgot to take this object after I made my parameter and then change the property of that nested parameter to be my local WP. You can see why it gets a little confusing. Now, save, load it to the project, overwrite. Now, this time I might want to overwrite the parameter values because I want to turn that off. Okay, so this time I am going to do this because that way it's going to, you see. Now, if I pick on here, I can say, okay, WP is off, click out. That's an instance parameter. So I can change this to be any type I want under my DG. I can make it a 220. Okay. Oh, look, the 220. Aha, okay, another little step here. It's funny because when you go through this, you don't realize until you teach someone. So I missed something again. Watch. If I pick on here, back to my edit the family. Okay, watch. If I go into my properties, my type, okay, standard, I want the 220 off and the WP off. Okay, the GFI, I want the WP off and the 220 off. And the 220, I want the WP off and the 220 on. You see, I'm making all these, but what I should be doing is presetting them according to these types. Okay, so the 220 has the 220 on, which is the middle line, but the WP is off, which is the half moons. Okay, the GFI doesn't have either one of these turned on. Okay, but it does have the label GFCI. Okay, and then the standard doesn't have this on or this or the label. So the standard is the standard, very vanilla. Aha! So there we go. Now I think I got it. Hit apply, hit OK. Save this guy. Load to project, overwrite. Let's say overwrite with the values, and now we should be all cleaned up. Okay, so the GFI by default, okay, has the WP off, and it has the 220 off and the label turned on. Okay, this is grouped under other. I could change that. Okay, maybe I want this label to be grouped under general. I'll fix that in a second. Okay, so the GFI type has these presets. This is clearly the 220 because it has the WP off and it has no label. Okay, and this is a standard. I can tell by looking at it because it doesn't have the WP and it doesn't have the 220, and it also doesn't say anything for the label. Okay, hit cancel. So just to finish up that last comment on grouping, if I pick on here and say edit family and go back in here and then go back to my family types and parameters, I can take that label guy and say group it with general. Watch, I'm going to say modify, group that with general instead of other. Hit OK. Hit OK. Save it. The grouping really doesn't mean anything. It just organizes it. Load to the project, hit OK, overwrite. I don't have to overwrite the values, just that. Now what happens is when I pick on here and I go to my edit type, label and 220 are both grouped under general here. Okay, so the difference is the standard has preset type settings. The 220 takes advantage of preset type settings. The GFI takes advantage of preset type settings, but the WP can be individual. I can turn the WP on any one. If I pick on here and say create similar, which is, they give me one of these, if I place that by default, it doesn't have that. Oh, I guess when I say create similar, it actually takes on the properties of that original. Interesting. So if I pick on here, I can take that WP off. So the WP is an instance parameter. So it can be turned on in any individual family and doesn't affect the other ones, as opposed to if you make a change as a type parameter, it's going to change all the other types. So one will propagate to the other types. The instance property is only local to that one individual family. So we're starting to see a little bit of flexibility. This, again, all really from one family, one model family, okay, with a nested annotation family. So really it is one family in the project, but it's made up of actually two families. Okay, so we're not done yet. We'll come back in our next lesson and talk a little bit about adding in a little, maybe another little symbol out here that might indicate whether this is, above the millwork or above the counter or not. So we'll come back and try that one in our next lesson.